Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to really cut through the noise on stories that matter. Today, we are taking a look at a huge player in faith-based media, Daystar Television Network. You might not follow Christian broadcasting closely, but honestly, Daystar's story, it's a compelling case study. Think a billion-dollar empire built on specific religious ideas, but facing, well, a lot of public controversies. So our mission today is basically to unpack the claims and counterclaims all surrounding this really influential organization. We want to pull out the key insights for you. Okay, so Daystar. Its official start date is 1987. They're headquartered in Bedford, Texas, though the roots actually go back a bit further to Montgomery, Alabama, around 1984, co-founded by Marcus and Joni Lamb. And just a quick note here, our sources mention Joni's name as Joni, but it often gets mispronounced as Johnny. Just something to keep in mind. They got known pretty quickly for being innovative in broadcasting, like they were early adopters of high-definition programming, and their stated vision, spreading what they call the gospel worldwide. With over 100 stations, I mean, their reach is massive.
Millions of people globally.
Yeah, it's huge. But what's really striking right from the start with the sources we looked at is their very critical perspective. Daystar presents itself as, generally faith-based, but these sources, they contend it actively pushes what's called the health, wealth, prosperity, word of faith gospel.
Okay, the prosperity gospel idea.
Exactly. For anyone not familiar with this teaching, it basically suggests that, God rewards strong faith and financial giving with material stuff, good health, success right here, right now. And the sources, they go pretty far. They claim the network features false teachers. They name names like Joseph Prince, Jim Baker, Perry Stone, Joyce Meyer people, often linked to this specific theology. So for our sources, this is really not genuine Christian faith, not at all. They argue pretty bluntly it's all about money. And they see it as a huge stain on the body of Christ. That's the wider Christian community because, well, a lot of viewers might think this is what true Christianity looks like.
That's a big concern.
Definitely. They even bring up Marcus Lamb's claim. Apparently, he said he got a divine mandate, like a direct command from God on the Mount of Olives to build Daystar, which, according to these sources, the implication is clear. Listeners should therefore give money. It's framed almost like obeying God directly.
Wow. That's quite the setup. A really strong contention right off the bat. And it definitely sets the stage for what we need to explore. This deep dive, we're going to dissect some of these major scandals, these controversies that have kind of followed Daystar. We want to understand the claims, sure, but also the bigger implications, especially with that alleged focus on money. Okay then, let's unpack this. Starting with an incredibly serious allegation. The sources, they start by detailing these claims about an alleged cover-up involving granddaughter abuse and the really severe family fallout from it. So the core allegation, co-founders Marcus and Joni Lamb supposedly covered up the sexual abuse of their granddaughter.
Right. This is Jonathan and Susie Lamb's daughter.
And the alleged abuser is a family member, just referred to as Pete in the sources.
Now, Daystar publicly denied this. They put out a statement saying the allegations were not credible and unfounded. They said the matter was thoroughly investigated and resolved. Case closed, basically. But yeah, the sources present a counterclaim from a forensic counselor named Debbie Leonard. She was apparently the investigator they hired.
Okay, a forensic counselor, someone who looks into these sensitive things.
Exactly. And Leonard reportedly said she couldn't even offer an assessment. Why? Because Pete, the alleged abuser, he wouldn't cooperate with her investigation. And there's more. There's reportedly a recording released to the Roy's Report, which is a media outlet. On it, you supposedly hear Denise Boggs, who oversaw the investigation for Daystar, telling Jonathan and Susie that Marcus and Joni wanted to just drop everything, stop any further documentation of the abuse.
And this is where it gets, well, just bizarre, according to the sources. Joni Lamb reportedly claimed God told her during prayer that Pete was innocent.
Yeah, Jonathan and Susie recounted that when she said this, Marcus Lamb apparently clapped his hands in joy, while the rest of the family just stood there completely dumbfounded.
Wow. If that's true, it's just a really stark example of how spiritual claims might have been used in a deeply personal and very fraught family situation.
Absolutely. And this whole conflict, it eventually led Jonathan and Susie Lamb to leave Daystar. A really tough decision, obviously. And they decided to go public with what they experienced.
So they took their evidence.
They reportedly gave all of our evidence over to multiple reporters, including the police department, that's their quote, and Jonathan. He claims he was bullied by the Daystar board. They wanted him to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement.
To keep him quiet.
Right. legally silenced. When he refused, they demoted him from his VP role, kicked him off the board. He basically became just a regular employee.
And then fired.
And then eventually fired, yeah. And it's interesting, there's also this note that Marcus Lamb had supposedly wanted Jonathan to take over Daystar someday, which certainly clashes with the fact that Joni Lamb is now leading the network.
It just paints this picture of, like, really intense internal fighting. Deep divisions. Our sources say Jonathan and Susie are now living in an undisclosed location. They feel unsafe.
Yeah, they cited scary things happen, being followed, private investigators, intimidation threats. It sounds pretty serious.
And their message now is quite direct, pulling from Scripture. They say God brings all things to light, and they're urging others to expose them, meaning Daystar referencing biblical verses like Ephesians 5.1 and Matthew 10.26.
It really suggests this culture where personal issues, spiritual authority, and control of the organization are all deeply tangled up.
Definitely seems that way.
And this alleged pattern, of secrecy, of protection within Daystar, according to our sources, it doesn't stop there. It extends to another really serious claim, this one involving Susie Lamb herself. Back in January 2017, Susie alleges she was sexually assaulted at Daystar.
Okay, wait. Another assault allegation? That's shocking? What are the details here?
Well, the sources report Susie says she was assaulted by an unlicensed chiropractor. And get this chiropractor was actually hired by Marcus and Joni Lamb.
Unlicensed. And hired by them.
Yeah. And even more concerning, the claim is that this chiropractor had previously lost his license. Why? Because of an alleged assault on a minor.
Oh, my goodness.
So Marcus and Joni reportedly believe he had come to Christ and was a changed man. So they invited him to work in the family green room at Daystar.
Okay, so Susie's account of what happened. What did she say?
As presented in the sources, it's pretty harrowing. She said the man became belligerent, seemed drunk while he was working on her. Then, Joni's assistant apparently left the room for just about 5 minutes. And in that time, Susie alleges he violently sexually assaulted her. She clarified it wasn't rape, but she emphasized it caused real pain.
And what was the alleged response from Marcus and Joni?
Jonathan told his parents about it, but according to the sources, Marcus and Joni allegedly buried the assault, just like the previous allegation. The sources really point to this as more evidence of that culture of secrecy and protection at Daystar, where serious incidents just get suppressed.
And Susie's reason for coming forward with this now?
She said her motivation was to stand with her daughter as a sexual assault victim.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful and tragic. How these two claims of assault are linked by this alleged organizational response.
It's really profound, yeah. It suggests a very troubling pattern if the sources are accurate.
It absolutely suggests a deeply troubled environment inside Daystar. Okay, let's shift gears a little, but we're still kind of on this theme of private lives versus public image. Let's talk about a controversy Marcus and Joni Lamb did address publicly. Marcus's marital infidelity. This happened around 2010, give or take. They actually went on air and admitted it. Marcus described it as starting as an emotional relationship that then turned into an improper relationship.
Right. And he publicly took 100% responsibility. He was very clear. Joni wasn't to blame. The other person wasn't to blame. Even the devil wasn't to blame, according to him.
But there's a backstory to that public admission, isn't there?
Yeah.
According to the sources.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. The sources claim this public confession came after an alleged extortion attempt. Apparently, 3 people threatened to leak the story to the media unless Daystar paid them. The demand was supposedly $7.5 million.
$7.5 million.
Yep. But Marcus publicly refused. He went on air saying they would not take God's money and pay to keep from being humiliated.
Okay, so that's a moment of, public vulnerability, standing up to alleged blackmail. But how do the sources square that with the previous allegations of covering things up privately? That seems like a contradiction.
That's a really key question the sources raise. They suggest this whole incident highlights a tension within Daystar's leadership. It's like maintaining this public image of moral rectitude versus how they allegedly deal with ethical problems internally. Marcus Lamb refusing to pay the alleged extortionists, framing it as protecting God's money and refusing humiliation. The sources imply this could also be seen as a strategic move. A way to control the narrative before it got out some other way.
Right, getting ahead of the story.
Possibly. And the sources also mentioned Dr. Phil, the TV host. Apparently, he referenced Marcus having said something about this incident during an interview, which kind of further cements that it was a public event.
So this episode, just like the others we've discussed, it really shows Daystar constantly dealing with intense scrutiny, both public and private.
Exactly. It's a recurring theme. This pattern of claims, whether it's alleged abuse, infidelity, it certainly makes you question transparency, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, let's pivot now to some major financial and ethical questions. These arose more recently in 2020, specifically involving a PPP loan and the purchase of a private jet.
Right, the Paycheck Protection Program.
Yeah, so our sources detail the claim. Daystar Television, which operates as a tax-exempt church, applied for and got $3.9 million from the government's PPP program during the pandemic.
And just for context, these loans were meant to help businesses, including nonprofits, keep paying their employees when the economy tanked because of COVID.
The whole idea of a multi-million-dollar religious network getting these funds was already controversial for some people. It raised questions about accountability, church-state separation, that sort of thing.
And the controversy just exploded about 2 weeks after they got the money. Why? Because Daystar reportedly went out and bought a private jet, a multi-million-dollar 1997 Gulfstream 5.
A Gulfstream 5. That's
Yeah.
a serious luxury aircraft.
Yeah.
Seats up to 14 passengers, right?
Exactly. So getting $3.9 million in pandemic relief funds and then turning around and buying a luxury jet, the timing it raised a lot of eyebrows.
Okay, so what was Daystar's explanation? Marcus Lamb's defense.
Well, Marcus Lamb insisted they didn't use the PPP money for the jet. He said they bought it using proceeds from an investment and the sale of its old jet.
So separate funds completely, he claimed.
Right, and he maintained the jet was purely for ministry purposes,
Yeah.
not for personal use.
But the sources found conflicting evidence.
They did. The sources cite an investigation by the TV show Inside Edition, and Inside Edition apparently presented a very different picture. They reportedly track the jet's usage,
Yeah.
and they found Marcus and his family using it for an 8-day trip down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and then there were social media posts. His wife reportedly posted, "Our amazing fam on vacay." His son posted something like, "Lots of great memories made on our family beach vacation."
Vacay, not exactly ministry purposes.
Doesn't sound like it. It directly contradicted Lamb's claim that it was a working vacation or a leadership retreat with ministers who happened to be family.
Were there other trips?
Yeah, Inside Edition reportedly found more. A 2-day trip to California, another 8-day trip, this time to Naples, Florida. On that trip, Lamb apparently played golf, vacationed with friends. There were a few meetings, maybe a church speech thrown in, but it looked predominantly like leisure.
So the optics, as they say, were just terrible.
Absolutely. Pete Evans from the Trinity Foundation, that's a church watchdog group, cited in the sources, he put it pretty plainly. They got millions of dollars from the government and then they spent millions of dollars on a private jet. It just looks bad.
Yeah, you can see why people would say that. So what does all this mean for, public trust, especially for ministries? And it feeds right back into that initial claim from the sources that Daystar is all about money, doesn't it?
It really creates a huge challenge for public trust. Yeah, I mean, think about it. An organization claiming a divine mission, preaching a gospel focused on prosperity, gets public relief funds, and then makes a massive luxury purchase. It just sparks this huge ethical debate, regardless of whether PPP funds were directly used for the jet or not.
Right, the timing and the appearance are the issue.
Exactly. The sources highlight this as a prime example of actions that, legal or not, can severely damage credibility. It just fuels that argument that maybe the network really is all about money, at least in how it appears to operate.
Did anything happen as a result of the Inside Edition report?
Well, the sources conclude this part by saying that after Inside Edition started asking questions, Daystar reportedly paid back the entire $3.9 million PPP loan.
Interesting. So the external pressures seem to have an effect.
It certainly seems that way.
Okay, so we've covered alleged abuse cover-ups, family fights, financial controversies, quite a list. Given all this, our sources, they really offer a very strong, very critical overall assessment of Daystar.
They really don't hold back, do they?
No. They use words like evil to describe the people involved. They accuse them of physical abuse and spiritual abuse. But the consistent thread, the thing they keep coming back to, is the claim that these individuals are ultimately after your money.
And they really emphasize the wider damage they believe this does to Christianity itself. Their argument is, look, the world is watching Daystar, millions of people, and many viewers might mistakenly think this kind of programming, this focus on wealth, these scandals, that this is genuine Christianity.
Which makes it harder for others.
Yeah, they argue it makes it harder and harder for genuine Christians to present the gospel when this is the public face many people see. And Jonathan and Susie Lamb's message, the one we talked about earlier, it kind of echoes that, right? Asserting God brings all things to light, encouraging exposure of worthless deeds, of evil and darkness.
It definitely raises a big question, doesn't it? What responsibility do these huge media platforms have, especially ones claiming a spiritual mission? What's their duty to their audience and, frankly, to their own internal ethics when they face such a long list of public accusations?
It's a critical question.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear our sources paint this consistent picture. Daystar Television Network. Hugely influential, yes, but also surrounded by this whole range of really serious, interconnected controversies.
Yeah, from the awful allegations of abuse cover-ups within the family, the internal power struggles.
Right through to these big questions about financial management using government funds, the
Yeah.
private jet. The claims are just extensive, multifaceted.
And it really highlights, for you listening,